And that's why they call me the Zombie Annihilator. I'm a fucking soldier, just like I told you. While I'm just warming up, you're getting colder. Out on the battleground, let's take a look around. There's a million of us ready to throw down. They'll never take me alive. Hit the pit, blood on the bricks. Don't look back, cause I got your six. Won't go down, never gonna quit. Don't turn back, cause I got your six. You know I got your back, they'll never take that. Until the bitter end, you know I'll never crack. I'll face an army, get fucking harm me. Out on the front line, that's where you'll find me. They'll never take me alive. Hit the pit, blood on the bricks. Don't look back, cause I got your six. Won't go down, never gonna quit. Don't turn back, cause I got your six. I will never accept defeat, and I will never quit. I've got your sex! I've got your
And this is the Zombie Annihilator with a Wake Your Ass Up morning show. And this morning, I'm going to be talking about illegal immigration. One of my subjects that touches very close to home. One of those reasons that I left wonderful Southern California to get away from the actual issues that were going on out there. The overpopulation of the sanctuary city, actually sanctuary part of California, because all of Southern California is basically a sanctuary city no matter what anybody wants to tell you. Because nobody's touched out there. And when something happens, they just cruise up a couple miles to LA and on their way they go. It's that simple. And it's so easy to hide within the mass population of California that you can basically get away with just about whatever you want if you know what you're doing. There's so much crime going out on there, and so much stuff that goes on a daily basis that the that law enforcement is tied up with. That these illegals are just kind of pushed underneath the rug, just kind of like it never happens. Law enforcement out there doesn't care about them. They really don't. Once they're in there, they're not touched. If they get arrested, they don't get turned into ice. Why? Because law enforcement's told not to. Because almost every top official out there is a socialist liberal. Best way I can put it. It's like living in a communist country when you go out there with the amount of I'll shove this down your throat. This is how you're going to live. This is how you're going to learn. This is what you're going to do in California. Don't get me wrong. My home state is a beautiful state to visit. There's a lot of beautiful things out in California. And it's a gorgeous place to go. I have many friends out there that still live there. But my reasoning behind leaving were a lot of these things because I couldn't handle it anymore. I couldn't stand by and let my children be raised in a place that I stood against, that I could not stand the fact that my children would be indoctrinated with liberalism, indoctrinated with illegals, because of the fact that you're forced to learn Spanish in school. They start teaching you Spanish from an early age in grade school. It's not an option anymore. Before it was ESL, which was English as a second language, that the illegals were forced to acclimate and learn English because of the fact that that's the only choice they had. They had to learn English no matter what to go through school. Well, no. It was pushed on the American people, so they were starting to push Spanish on these young children at an early age, just so they could handle the amount of illegals that were coming in through the school. So all of a sudden you had all these American people that are being forced to do something that many are against because we live in America. Our native language is English. And why should we be forced to learn another language when our native language is English? Why should we be forced to learn somebody else's language? If I go down to Mexico, they're not going to cater to me in my language. They're not going to learn English for me. No, they're still going to speak Spanish. They're not going to turn or cater anything for me. Because when I go down to Mexico, you're expected to abide by Mexican laws. And if you don't, they'll send you home. It's that simple. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're assholes about it. They will send your ass home with a boot up your ass. And they do not care. But the American people and the big hearts that we have and the Christian way of life that we do have which still will never make any sense to me. How a Christian can vote to the liberal side and believe that it's okay to vote towards that side when everything they stand for is against their beliefs and their religion. That's never made any sense to me. But I digress. I'm not talking about that today. Talking about the force fed stuff that happens with illegal immigration. Now, there's many things that happen in California, and the reason I mention California is because I personally dealt with this stuff all my life. All the way up until I was about 30 years old. So, with that being said, I watched this as I was growing up, and I saw this stuff happening. Now, a few things happen when you come across the border in California. If, and I say if, you end up getting caught, you are detained. And back in Clinton's era, he wrote a law that stated that a child could not be incarcerated or detained down at the border more than 20 days with their parent. So that meant that that child could not stay in the custody of federal enforcement for more than 20 days before they would have to be let out. Well, the problem there lies that in the books further back, it stated that those same people were supposed to be back over the border within that time. But with our asylum law, they come over and say they're seeking asylum because they're afraid of whatever. They're afraid of the drug lords and everything else. They try anything they can to get to stay here. And out of about 100% of the people that apply for asylum, you do realize that only about 4% of them actually make it through the process and actually win asylum. But easy put, so you got 100 people that are seeking asylum. Only 4 of them are actually telling the truth once everything is done and said. So they're going through, and ICE enforcement has to go through each one of these cases and investigate each one of these cases. This is why our borders are backed up. This is why the federal prisons are backed up down there. And the Democrats are trying to overload these, so it makes it too difficult that they'll have to start letting them in again. So it makes the liberals look good. Sorry, this is what it is. I've seen it happen. It's a ploy for liberals to do it because it helps them get votes later on. But the strong stance that Trump took on immigration, this has made many American people very happy because it's infiltrated jobs. It's taken stuff away from Americans that should be given to Americans. You have many of them on welfare, their children on welfare. Okay, there's a problem there. And their children are on welfare. And when these Hispanic people come over here across the border, most of the time